Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really
if they
something.
recommended it?
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out.
Something you're allowed to do, but you haven't thought about it. Well, that's leaving the door open. Why? Why exactly? Well, look, the initial reaction from people that are perennially black-pilled, I'm kind of in that camp myself, was that, oh my God, Donald Trump is going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's going to be the end of this story. Look, I'm going to spin this potentially positively. I'm not saying this is going to be the outcome. I'm just saying this is an angle that I've been considering after this news broke that basically the Deputy AG, Todd Blanche, met with Maxwell over the past 2 days. The first day was allegedly a very, very long meeting, and the second one was relatively short. But in that meeting, he gave her limited immunity, which allowed for her to sing. It allowed for her to, I guess, blow the whistle or tell the truth about all of the clients that they were working with. Allegedly, she has discussed over 100 names at this point. So I'm not exactly expecting the heavens to open up and 1,000 people go to prison or anything like that. But what I was thinking is that, look, if Maxwell was a bit player in this, and I don't know that she was, I think that she had major involvement, and I think she knows where the bodies are buried, rhetorically speaking. And she certainly deserves to be in prison, probably for the rest of her life. As of now, I think she's facing a 20-year sentence, and she's been in for 5. So she'll be out while she's still alive. Like, that's going to happen. So she's not in there for life. If, and this is a big if the DOJ, if the Trump administration are actually interested in assuaging the public's concerns, which, as I've said in my prior series on this topic, is that I do not think that's what they're actually concerned with. And I think that they're just trying to pacify us while delivering us nothing. I will say, though, if, and this is a big if they were to offer her a pardon or a commutation of the remainder of her sentence to actually provide testimony that leads to the convictions of dozens of the rich and powerful clientele that she and Epstein were working with, and if she were to actually lay out the story as to how they got away with it for as long as they did, why did they do what they did? Was this, in fact, a blackmail operation? Who did she work for? If we could actually get clarity on these things and prosecutions that lead to the imprisonment of some of the most powerful players in this organization, and maybe undermine the stranglehold that the intelligence community has over this country and over this government, well then, I think that trade-off is well worth making. And I know that I've already posted about this on X and I got major pushback and people were absolutely furious with me. But look, does Maxwell deserve to be free? No. But do the dozens, if not hundreds of Johns that she was shuffling off these children to deserve to walk free? Not just walk free, but actually, in many cases, control major aspects of your life? The answer is absolutely not. So while this is far from a perfect solution, I'm just saying it would be better than what we have so far. Now, is the Trump administration actually heading in that direction? I kind of doubt it. I mean, the fact that you have reporting from Wall Street Journal, others that are saying, oh, here's a birthday card, here's this, here's that, signed by Donald Trump. Trump is alleging that they're all frauds and forgeries, and he's going to sue everybody into oblivion. I'm not so much interested in Donald Trump when it comes to this case. Yes, if he is actually a participant and did anything with someone underage, sure, put him in prison forever. Don't care. Not the point. The point is, I think, and I have a lot of reason to think this, as I've laid out in the prior episode, so I won't go through all the details, but the biggest point being that Maria Farmer, one of the most high-profile victims of Epstein and Maxwell, said repeatedly that there was pinhole cameras throughout not just the island or the islands, there's plural, as Ryan Dawson likes to correct me, but also his ranch in New Mexico, also his huge penthouse property in New York. Why? Is this guy just a pervert that's doing this for his own self-satisfaction? I would imagine probably not. How did he become such an incredibly rich person if he was just doing it for his own personal satisfaction? Look, it's obvious to me that this guy got, and we're talking extraordinarily wealthy, multiple jets and some of the biggest properties in everywhere that he lived and owned places. He climbed the ladder in a way that begs the question, how? And, moreover, why? Why did he get to these lofty heights, given that he wasn't this particularly gifted guy? He was just a tax accountant. How did he get to where he got? And I think that the answer is somewhere inside those pinhole cameras. And that's what I really want to know, not to downplay the victimization of all of the women that were victimized during this operation, but rather because until we know the full nature of this story, until we know to what heights it actually reaches, if it does in fact reach into the highest levels of our government and actually into the highest levels of the deep state, which I believe it does, well then that matters more than anything, because that means that you do not have electoral representation. You have blackmail victims at the highest levels ruling over you. So while the last thing I want to see is Ghislaine Maxwell free to go on The View or whatever, which by the way was just canceled or put on hiatus. Bye, ladies. The last thing I want to see is this blackmail organization just continue to do what it has been doing for the past couple decades, but doing it under some new moniker with some new creepy dude and gal. So does a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell get us there? Well, it could. Does the DOJ want to get us there? I'd say probably not. At this point, it seems as if they are in cover-up mode, or at least they have been in cover-up mode, and I would imagine that if they do allow Ghislaine to sing for a lessening of her sentence, it would probably be to pin all of this on Democrat operatives and to obfuscate the reality that this was done on both sides of the aisle. So there are no perfect solutions. That's the unfortunate reality. But at this point, it's about as unperfect as it gets. So would I like to see additional prosecutions if it means she gets out sooner? Sure. Yes, I would. Because we need to understand the nature of this thing. It can't just live in the realm of conspiracy forever. It's extraordinarily important, which is why I've done now 4 episodes over the past 2 weeks about it, which, as you guys know, I do not cover the same topics that often. But I think that this one is really, really important.
I was very fortunate that President Clinton introduced me a lot of business leaders in London because he knew I was coming to the Old Vic. Do you know who I never asked for anything? Was Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't want to be around this guy because I felt he put the president at risk on that trip to South Africa because there were these young girls. And we were like, who is this guy? So I will say this.
There were young girls on those flights.
There were young girls on those flights, yeah. And that's been out. They've talked about it. But here's my point. There's a big difference between not remembering that I met some guy and some woman on a humanitarian trip where my focus was entirely on what we were there to do, and not remembering whether I went to somebody's island. So I never went to Jeffrey Epstein's island. I did not know him, and I never saw him or her after that morning at Buckingham Palace. He didn't even come to Buckingham Palace.
The last thing I want to see is Ghislaine Maxwell going on Piers Morgan doing these reputational repair media blitzes, but that's kind of the trade-off that you get here. I would like to know, not just Kevin Spacey, but Chris Tucker, and I mean, the list of people that were in the orbit of Epstein. I would like to know which of them were actually guilty of these crimes and which were not. And I think that unless you get someone to flip, someone who actually knows where the bodies are buried, rhetorically speaking, someone who actually understands why was Jeffrey Epstein given the plea bargain deal back in 2008, the sweetest of sweetheart deals anyone's ever seen for a case like that. Why? Someone knows. And it's not just Jeffrey Epstein that knows, and it's not just his lawyers that know. If there is someone else that knows, aside from the intel agencies, which will never tell us, I would guess it's Ghislaine Maxwell. I think she probably really, really knows.
Do we know anything else about what they discussed, Paula?
Well, we're learning a little bit, but there's still more questions than answers. We know the two sides met today for about 3 hours. After talking through the day yesterday, once again, her lawyer said she answered every question that she was asked. She did not invoke privilege. And when really pressed on exactly what she's being asked about, her lawyer said that they've asked about every single possible thing you can imagine, but then revealed that she was asked about maybe 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody and did not hold anything back. I think that's sort of the biggest headline we've gotten out of these meetings so far.
Now, that's not to say she's trustworthy. She's certainly not. But if the commutation is contingent upon her providing corroborating evidence, which must lead to convictions or her sentence is not reduced, well, then we might get somewhere. We might actually get truth. And for that reason, if they were to actually proceed with this, she would need to have 24/7 security because undoubtedly she would be in the fire, just like Jeffrey Epstein was.
As the leader of my party, I lead the incumbent protection program. Okay, that's my job. I go all around the country. I travel endlessly, incessantly. I have to raise over $300 million to do that, and we want everybody to come back. And some people, I try to protect them from themselves. You know, they kick and scream and bite their own colleagues. Some people seem to enjoy in trying to inflict political pain on their own teammates. I'm not going to address anybody individually, but I'll tell you that some here are much more frustrated than others. There's a small, tiny handful, but one in particular who's given me lots of consternation. I don't understand. I don't understand Thomas Massey's motivation. I really don't. I don't know how his mind works. I don't know what he's thinking. Thomas Massey could have brought his discharge petition any time over the last 4.5 years. Over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, he could have done that at any time. And now he's clamoring as if there's some sort of timeline on it.
I got to stop it there because this constant besmirching of Thomas Massey's good name is driving me out of my fucking mind, to be honest. Mike Johnson is a liar. Thomas Massey called for the full release of the Epstein files 3 times during Biden's presidency. So to pretend as if, he's just now talking about it is a lie. Additionally, the reason that he's now pushing for additional maneuvers is because he sees an opportunity to actually get a vote passed that might actually lead somewhere. When you guys were in the minority, you had no Democrats that would have voted for this. Now you have the Democrats on board, and you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 GOP members that are also willing to proceed with this because their constituents want it. There's something just deeply disgusting about the way he phrases this, or frames it rather, that, I'm a team player. I travel all over the country trying to get $300 million to make sure that the incumbents all stay put. Well, first off, I don't want all the incumbents to stay put. Some of you guys fucking suck. Actually, most of you do. So most of you ought to be gone. Thomas Massey's like one of the only guys I would like to see stay. He and MTG and a few others. But I think what was most notable is that he goes, I don't know how this guy's mind works. Thomas Massey is one of the most transparent politicians I've ever encountered. Every single vote, particularly ones that are controversial, he posts online. Sometimes he'll do a video of it where he explains exactly his justification and his reasoning. And by the way, despite the fact that I've disagreed with maybe 2 of his votes ever, he has always put forward an explanation that is at least sound, at least justifiable, at least understandable. Whereas the rest of you, these team players that are all defending the swamp, that's not what we want. The reason you can't understand the mind of Thomas Massey is because he actually is interested in delivering for his constituents, not for his team. His team is the American people. The better question for you, Mike, is why are the American people not your concern? Why is your concern the team? Why is your concern the GOP swamp? And when you answer that, you will finally understand why he is beloved and you are reviled.
It's interesting to me that he chose the election of President Trump to bring this, to team up with the Democrats and bring this discharge petition. So do I have some concern about that? I do. But in me and my way, I try to follow Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, never speak evil of another Republican. My gosh, it's hard to do sometimes around here. I also try to follow the scripture. It says, bless those who persecute you. So let me just say about Thomas Massey, could you just accept my Southern, bless his heart, okay? I don't know what else to say about it. We're for maximum transparency. We're engaging in that right now, and we don't need political gain.
I think the better question is, Mike, why do you feel as if you're being persecuted? Why is his pressure, which, by the way, is in alignment with the MAGA base, which allegedly are the people you're supposed to represent, correct? No? Okay. He is trying to deliver on campaign promises made by your guy, Donald Trump. So sorry that he's actually listening to the voters here, but that's one of the major reasons that Trump's approval ratings are plummeting, particularly amongst young men, which are just, plunging doesn't even do it justice, down like 30, 40 points. It's unbelievable. And the biggest category that's listed as to why is the handling of the Epstein case. This is a self-inflicted wound. You did not need to go down this path. You promised these things. The fact that you're not delivering on them does not make Thomas Massey the bad guy. It actually makes him the good guy, that he's the one that's willing to continue for the fight to deliver on the promises that you made. If you expect us to flip on him because he's not a team player, you're out of your fucking mind. You're not a team player. You're not actually delivering what your voters demanded, what they voted for. So spare me.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, "I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is." Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person
first of all,
well?
I don't know that, but I do know that
She has. She's been arrested for that. You know
her
that.
friend or boyfriend
Epstein.
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that
Oh, so you're saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
I mean,
they
she's
made
a
it
child
such
alleged child sex
a
trafficker.
big deal. But all it is her boyfriend died. He died in jail. Was he killed? Was it suicide? I do. I wish her well.
I'm going to move off this topic now because I feel like I've beaten it to death, but I just got to say, that is such a bizarre answer from Donald Trump. I wish her well. Like, if you want to say, I'd like to, reserve judgment until the jury's heard the case. I'm the president of the United States, because that was in 2020, I think, right before the election. Like, maybe he wants to say, look, I don't want to put my voice or my, thumb on the scale of justice when it comes to this case. It's too important. Let's let the jury decide. Like, those are all fine answers. To say you wish her well is just bizarre. And honestly, I think it's because he had a relationship with her. Like, I'm not saying that he had a romantic relationship or that he was a participant with the trafficking stuff. I don't think that he actually was. I think if he were, there'd probably be evidence that would have circulated by now, and I haven't ever seen it. Not saying that it's impossible, just saying I haven't seen it. But it's obvious. There is a lot of evidence that she has been at a lot of functions with him in this elite, creepy circles that they run in. And I think he knew her well, and he probably was somewhat fond of her. And that's odd, to put it mildly. But I think until we get the truth about this, until we actually understand who were the creeps, who were the blackmail victims, who were the Johns, who were the rich and powerful, who were the intel agencies that were running this shit, until we have these answers, it's just going to continue to create insanity. And no one's going to move on from this. Not for any extended period of time. It's just going to sit on the back burner. Like, sure, it won't be on the front burner. It'll be on the back burner, but it's just going to be sitting there simmering for the rest of your presidency. We need answers. We need justice. We need prosecutions. And most importantly, we need to get to the bottom of how this operation ran, who ran it, and then make sure that it can't ever happen again, particularly if our intelligence agencies were operating. And if it was foreign intelligence, well, then we need to change our relationship with those nations immediately, as in cease them. Cease those relations. It's insane that we would ever allow a foreign intel agency to do what apparently was being done in our country.
Did you have any type of relationship with Biden?
Not the same. I've known Biden for, 40 years? Almost as long. Well, both of them. Over the decades, it was a different relationship. It was a friendship, but also it evolved into, how shall I say this? Severe disagreements.
Mm.
And with Donald Trump, we've had powerful agreements. And when there's no daylight between an American president and an Israeli prime minister, amazing things can happen.
And the obvious connection between these clips that I'm playing is that, yeah, I think that there was foreign intel involved. And I think that Netanyahu knows about it intimately. And this is why it's so concerning when you see a foreign diplomat, a prime minister like Netanyahu, saying, I mean, is anybody comfortable, no matter how you feel about Israel, is anybody comfortable with a foreign leader saying there is no daylight between he and Donald Trump? When there's no daylight between an American president and a Israeli prime minister, incredible things can happen. Well, I've been looking at the results of some of your actions, Mr. Netanyahu, and I don't think it's incredible at all. I mean, it's incredible that it persists. It's incredible that it's allowed to continue, but I don't think it's incredible because he's saying it in a really positive connotation. I think it's an extraordinarily negative connotation. And even if there was no war in Gaza, well, by the way, there's way more than the war in Gaza. They're bombing like 4 or 5 nations over the past couple of years. But even if they weren't involved in hostilities with their neighbors, Still, I want there to be daylight between the American president and any foreign nation. There should be daylight. If you are prioritizing the considerations of your people, there must be daylight. You cannot have no daylight between an American president and the leader of any foreign country. That means you're servile to that country. And that's the problem. And this is the pushback that people continue to give on this issue. And rightfully so. It's very unhealthy. And I don't know why it has been ignored for so long. But at some point, you just have to see it for what it is. We should not have a relationship with a foreign country that's this lockstep. There has to be differences of opinion. Now, maybe he's framing it and there is, in fact, more difference of opinion behind the scenes. You had that big moment almost a month ago now where Trump said they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and he was very upset. It's like, that was the one time that I've seen. And I would like there to be a little bit more daylight, like a lot, like a spotlight of daylight. If we could get that, that would be great. And here is why that relationship matters. No matter how you feel about the country, this is why that relationship is a danger.
This bipartisan legislation will require social media companies to release detailed public reports of violations of their terms of service and to outline how they're addressing these violations, which includes the use of their platforms by terrorist groups. Every day companies fail to report this information, it will result in a $5 million fine. Social media companies can no longer hide the crimes that take place on their platforms, especially when they pose a threat to America's national security. And we're very proud this bill has the backing of the Anti-Defamation League.
I saw anti-Semitism for the first time when I was 15 years old. I had good parents who taught me it was wrong, but it left a lasting impression on seeing my first incident as a teenager. And if you're on my social media, you see it every day from people that are responding back with what I consider clearly anti-Semitic kind of messages on social media. I even saw an article today, it was about me, but talking about we have to oppose congressmen who are pro-Zionists, right? And you're like, in other words, it's all over our social media, and it's unacceptable.
Health insurance is confusing, expensive, and frustrating, and claim denials are becoming more and more common. In fact, 1 in 5 Obamacare claims were denied last year. That's just unacceptable. The headache of health insurance is exactly why Crowd Health was created. It's not health insurance. It's a better way to pay for healthcare through crowdfunding. So stop sending money to big insurance companies who profit off of not paying your bills and check out Crowd Health. For $175 for an individual or $575 for a family of 4 or more, you'll get access to a community of people who are willing to help out in the event of an emergency. You get access to telemedicine visits, discounted prescriptions, and so much more without doctors' networks getting in the way. And of course, you'll join the crowd, a group of members just like you who want to help pay for each other's unexpected medical events. Let Crowd Health help with your healthcare needs. Get started today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months by using code LOCKDOWN at joincrowdhealth.com. Crowd Health is not insurance. Learn more at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code LOCKDOWN. Get you some. Now that's Representative Gottheimer, Democrat, and Bacon, Republican, standing there next to Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, announcing a bill that they're pushing to try and basically criminalize and apply additional pressure to social media companies to provide reports on anti-Semitism, hate speech online. Well, last I checked, it's a private company, bro. Why are you applying pressure? Why is it not up to them to decide? On what grounds can you actually push this? And is it not a clear First Amendment violation to do so? I would argue that it probably is. Now, the way they work around that is by saying, well, they just have to provide us reports. We're not actually compelling them to censor. But you know where this leads. That's the pressure that they're putting on because Bacon even says it. He says, this is unacceptable. Well, I see all this hateful stuff every day and it's got to go away. Well, that's censorship from a government official. You're pushing to control the narrative on the internet. Totally not okay. And to stand up there next to Greenblatt, who's just this constantly preaching about hate speech being everywhere and blah, 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 is just insulting. It's insulting to the American people that you guys have a relationship with a group like that. I mean, it's about as un-American as it gets. Sorry. Look, I'm not in love with hate speech. I think that it does go too far at times, and people certainly go buck wild on the internet. But so what? Grow the fuck up. I mean, it's so crazy because simultaneously we see just unbelievable death and destruction in Gaza. And then on the inverse of that, you go there's a lot of hatred going on the internet. All these bad words. It's like, What's more offensive to you, Don Bacon? Is it the thousands of blown up kids, or is it negative words? Because all I can tell is that your entire priority is the hateful words. Who gives a shit about the hateful words? Seriously, grow up. I mean, and it's just so insulting because it's so obvious that they're doing this for their campaign contributors. Like, crystal clear. I don't believe that anybody, I mean, maybe there are people in the GOP that are just that cucked that they don't care about free speech. I'm sure there are probably hundreds of them actually, but regardless, it's sick. It's totally un-American. It's totally unconstitutional. And fuck you if you support any laws that dictate social media and fines if they don't deliver reports on hateful phrases being used on the internet. It's childish. Grow up. And this topic is totally off the beaten path, but I thought it was a really interesting take, and I wanted to break it down with you guys.
My interest in this may have come from the fact that for some reason my father, I had one brother, he said to both of us, I'm not going to leave you anything. And I thought that was rather interesting. It didn't seem to bother me at all. My brother, he wasn't so keen on the idea, but he told us and we knew. And so we had to go out in the world knowing that's what was going to happen. A lot of people say, well, look, it's so hard. It's so hard. You've got to help your children. I can't get it out of my head. What about all the children that won't get anything at all? It just seems very unfair on them that through an accident of birth, that some people get a leg up, some people get a massive leg up, some people get a little leg up, but they're not going to get anything. And I don't know why I think that way. I just think it isn't fair because my son hasn't done anything to other than be born to me to earn that money. So I think we need to think again. Myself, I know I'm pretty much on my own on this, but I'm not sure whether just an automatic leaving things to family is anymore. It used to be, but I'm not so sure anymore.
What are you going to do with this money if you don't leave it to your son? Are you going to spend like Viv Nicholson?
No, what I'm actually doing is I'm setting up a charitable trust, leaving Arlo a job, if he wants to take it, working for that charity, helping to give money away to good cause.
That last line there is so telling. So telling and heartbreaking, honestly. So let me explain why. When he says at the end, she goes, well, so what are you going to do with that money? And he goes, well, I'm going to give him a job if he'll help in giving the money away to good cause. So good causes. So your son is not a good cause. I mean, think about how bizarre that is. Like these people, because that's what these other charitable foundations do, right? They're going to create other avenues of assistance for other people, not your son. So they are a worthy cause, but your child is not. And I think that this topic has been mulled over. And by the way, he says he's alone in this. He's not alone in this. This is a common practice and an increasingly common practice amongst the most wealthy, particularly on the left side, like the billionaire Democrat class. They tend to do these giving pledges where they're going to give their wealth away and they're going to leave their children with, either nothing or very little. And the argument has been made that, and I think that this is a valid one, that oftentimes if you give your inheritance to your kids when they're very young, it can spoil them. And while that's no doubt true in some instances, we're not talking about children, assuming that you die of natural causes or just nothing catastrophic in your 40s, 50s. That means that your kid will be 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years old himself when you pass away. So do you honestly think that that will be a life wrecker for him? Now, he didn't even make this argument. I'm trying to steel man his side of the argument that I could see a case to be made that you do not want to leave a large sum of money to a young person who hasn't really established themselves, because it'll basically, it's like welfare. It basically absorbs some of that competitive drive that you need to succeed to get somewhere. But I think that there's a bigger point that's totally overlooked when it comes to this subject, is that according to calculations based off of minimum wage and purchasing power of housing, I saw this video go viral earlier this morning where it said that in the 1970s, like to have the same purchasing power for a home today as you did in the 1970s, the minimum wage today would need to be over $60 an hour. Now, that's not to say that the dollar has diminished that much in purchasing power, though it has diminished a ton. but rather housing is so much more expensive that when you combine the two, minimum wage, which I think was like $3 in the 70s, would now need to be over, actually it was probably in the $2 range. Good Lord. But it would now need to be in the 60s in order to match that purchasing power. So the argument that I'm making is that it's extremely hard for this generation to get a house. This is not just like, oh, woe is me. Our generation has it the hardest. And it's just like playing the victim card. Like, this is a fucking fact. This is the truth. You could get a house and the white picket fence and the family and the 2 dogs and the kids and all that. And you could do it on maybe not a starting position, but certainly on a mid-level position in many, many corporations in this country. Also, pensions existed. They don't really anymore. There's a lot that has changed. You can thank globalization. You can thank a whole bunch of government actions, including inflation, that have contributed to this phenomenon. But I think that it's really sad that his generation, the boomer generation or thereabouts, got extraordinarily wealthy on the biggest credit bubble in human history. Most of them got wealthy. I'm not talking about the high earners that actually create something special or work their asses off. Like, there's exceptions to this rule. But a lot of people, like the middle class that are now millionaires, they got it just by buying a home and then riding the inflationary wave until that starter home became worth $1 million or more. Sometimes they got 2 or 3 homes and they felt like geniuses because it tripled or quadrupled or 10x'd in value from the time they bought it. I'm not trying to degrade these people. Like, God bless. All I'm saying is that you had a massive advantage that your children do not have and will not have. And you don't want to pass that on to them? And I think that the really tragic thing about this is his perception didn't actually go here. But the way I read it is, if you think handing wealth down to your children will destroy them, well, I think the real problem is that you didn't do a good job parenting your children. Why have you not built them up to have a foundation that's so solid that even if they were to receive a windfall in financial gains, that they could still keep their shit together? Does that not say something about you? Does it not say something about your parenting? That if they were to hit the lotto, they just start doing hookers and blow until they die young? Like, is that really how you view them? And if you do view them that way, why do you take no personal responsibility in that? Why do you feel no shame in saying it? And he didn't even go this direction. He's just basically saying, my kids aren't a good cause. They're not a good enough cause. They didn't do anything to earn it. Well, did the fucking poor person at the foundation that you're going to hand the money off to do anything to earn it? No, they didn't. They're just down on their luck. And guess what? So are your kids. Why do you prioritize strangers over your own family? How fucked up is that? There was no examples in human history I can think of where this became common practice, where people started to prioritize strangers over their own family. It's ultimately why we're just seeing the death of the West, that we don't care about ourselves as much as we do fucking foreigners. How crazy is that? It's not sustainable. Any civilization that looks at things this way will quickly meet its demise. I don't think I'm jumping to conclusions here. It's just logical. If you acquire wealth for your family, and by the way, your children suffered. This guy's a writer and a comic, right? So that meant he traveled, so they didn't get to be with him a lot. I'm sure he's a standing, traveling comic. So all of the absenteeism that comes with a high income earning parent, usually it's offset by the fact that there's financial windfall that come with his hard work. And God bless. I'm not trying to degrade him for it. Again, I'm just saying, is that trade-off? So you got to go out and live your dreams and go travel the world and be a stand-up comic and make millions of dollars, and your kids didn't get to see you. And now you go, these fucking worthless kids, they'd probably fuck it up anyways, right? So I'm not going to hand them any inheritance. Honestly, it's sick. And I'm not making this pitch because I don't think that you should, I'm not saying you should give up. I'm not saying that you can't buy a house, that you can't become wealthy, that you can't start a company and become wildly successful. You can. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's much harder today than it was in his younger years. There is nothing wrong with trying to make sure that your progeny survive and thrive. And might I add, if you don't hand down the wealth to your children, to your offspring, In this environment, this inflationary environment, which is extraordinarily hard to buy a house, get married, start a family, have kids, the dogs, white picket fence, all that, a pension. If you don't hand down that wealth to them when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you probably aren't getting grandkids. Your bloodline will probably end as a consequence of your selfishness, that you would rather hand it off to strangers in a faraway land than hand it to the direct lineage, your own children. It's reprehensible. You should be shamed for this worldview, honestly. And I'm probably taking too hardline of a stance on it, but I think I'm right. I think that this is a sickness. In some ways, it actually seems to signify self-hatred, that you think so little of yourself and probably have shame over your skin or your gender and this whole woke worldview that you now hate your own kids, that you don't want them to reproduce. You don't want them to prosper. You don't want them to actually conquer anything. You want them to fall away, to go extinct. It's tragic. And I hope if there's any boomers out there watching or listening, that you will think deeply about what I'm saying, that I am not trying to plead victim for the younger generations, but rather I think there has been a failure to prioritize the lineage, the children, the generations that come after you. And I assure you, this is not a phenomenon that you're going to come across in Asian cultures. China, you think that they're handing it off to third world charities? No, they're going to hand it off to their kids, and they're going to try and conquer the fucking planet. And if you think that you shouldn't be helping your kids do the same, well, then expect your nations to be conquered in short order. You absolute pussies. Well, that's a rant you didn't expect, huh? If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, subscribe, always, and make sure you pick up your cousin, your niece, your nephew, your grandma, your uncle, your aunt, and all your best, if you have any friends, which I know in this internet age, very few of us have any friends, but if you have any IRL friends or even internet friends, pick up their phone and subscribe to Liberty Lockdown so that you never miss an episode. Make sure you hit the updates and just share it around. That helps tremendously. And last but not least, I got to make a quick apology to Owen Schroyer. I feel absolutely terrible about this. He is, one of the InfoWars guys. He's fucking awesome, and I'm a huge fan of his. And I had him scheduled to do the show. I had him scheduled from 1 to 2 Eastern. He's in Texas time. And he messaged me after we had it booked, and he said, basically, make sure you have me out by 1:50. He's got a heart out, got another show he's got to do, or maybe he's got his own show. I'm not sure what. I have this physical calendar because I'm a boomer myself, and I circled 2 to remind myself to have him out before 2, like hard out, like circled 2. Then I woke up the next day and I glanced at the calendar and I saw the 2 circled, and I thought it started at 2 as opposed to 1 with a hard out at 1:50. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I've never blown it that bad ever. I told him I'd pay him for his time. I did whatever I could to make it up to him. He's obviously pissed, and he should be. It was a fucking huge slap in the face and a waste of his time. And I've had people do that to me in the past as a guest a couple times, and I always fucking hate them when they do it to me. So I deserve every ounce of anger I'm sure he has towards me, but my sincere, deepest apologies, and I'm doing it publicly because I felt that bad about it. But it's just a freak thing. I've literally never done that to anybody ever, and I never will again. But man, I feel terrible. So he responded, he said, I definitely can't do it this week, maybe next. And that was where he left it. And I don't know if I'll ever hear from him again, but if you see him on the internet or anywhere, let him know I am sincerely sorry, and I would love to have him on the show. I think we would have an incredible conversation. And if you're a fan of his as well, make sure you let him know that you still want to see him on Liberty Lockdown with Clint Russell. My apologies, Owen. You're the man. All right, we're out of here. Peace.